Alright, welcome to a standard video through MTGSpeculation.com. I'm running band CoCo. I'm starting to play test for a Grand Prix Minneapolis. And looking at decks that don't rely heavily on Cons and Fate Reforged. So this is the perfect list. I think there's only a few cards in the entire list that are from those two sets outside of the fetches. Santa's keepable. It's not great, but so I'm gonna get Canopy Vista here. Green, red. I think Canopy Vista, play Prairie Stream, and then hopefully the rest of my lands come into play untapped. It's a little bit unfortunate. Before I drew that Canopy Vista, I didn't have another green source in my mana base, so I was pretty heavily incentivized to just fetch for a Canopy Vista there. Jace is a turn late. Jace doesn't do that much work in this spot anyways. So I'm just gonna play a fetch and pass and just play a Bounding Crisis on his turn. Okay. We're very likely to just get Dragonlord to target here. Or Ugin. I don't need another blue source. Let's play Bounding Crisis. Another Crisis. My play is very likely to be the same. With him ramping up to this mana, I definitely just want to play at instant speed, so I don't get blown out by Dragonlord Atarka too badly. World Breaker. Also, he's just going to hit a land with this. Okay, we'll let it come into play. Play Crisis and tap it down. So now we don't have a blue source, which is problematic. But we're getting in for 6 here. That is actually pretty devastating. If we find a blue source before he hits like Ulamog, which I have access to right now, 6, 9, Spatial Contortion, okay. So if he plays nothing else this turn, and we draw a blue source, Yeah, this is pretty brutal. Reflector Mage might end up being enough to win this though if I can draw the blue source. I doubt I'm just dead here. This is probably Ulamog. Okay. Yeah, losing my blue source there was pretty brutal. And that's it. Yep, we kind of needed a 2-drop there. Another land would have been nice. Okay, so I want to bring in cheaper counters in this matchup. So I'm going to bring in 2 negates, or 2 disdainful strokes. I'm going to bring in a negate. And I'm probably going to cut this and this, so it doesn't really do much here. And I'll run it like this. Have just some cheap action if I can counter a World Breaker or something like that. Should be a pretty big tempo swing. He didn't really seem to do much in between there, and I'm guessing that he's running Kozilek's Return. Which doesn't actually kill anything in our deck, but a Warden that's not leveled, and Jace. Well, and Den Protector, I guess. Okay, so this hand's better, I think. Unfortunately, we don't have double green for Deathmist Raptor, but I'll just go green-white, and then any fetch that I draw should allow me to get double green for Deathmist Raptor. Yeah, we were an island away from winning that game. This deck normally operates, well, when it operates well, it operates really well. It's low to the ground, it gets out and gets the beatdowns on pretty early. It has a lot of threats that can dodge things like Ulamog, using Collected Company and things like that. So yeah, I'm gonna fetch a basic here, so I don't. If I fetch Canopy Vista and then I play Plains and then I draw a fetch, I won't be able to play Deathmist Raptor on turn 3 unless I morph it, which I might have to morph it anyways here. Which isn't the end of the world, but it means I'm getting in for significantly less damage. Our opponent is playing pretty slow. I'd imagine he's in another event or something along those lines. These Eldrazi ramp decks have gotten a lot better with Oath of the Gatewatch. I expect them to comprise a pretty large percentage of the field. Okay. This worked out pretty well. Choose target creature I control. So it worked out well. I got my second green source. I get to play a removal spell and get in for 3 here. So next turn, he's likely to play a ramp spell, which gets him to 4 mana. Then we're likely to see another ramp spell, which will get him up into World Breaker range. And at that point, I should have 2 Death Touchers on the board, and I should have him at about 11. So by that point in time, I want to have drawn, hopefully, a Disdainful Stroke or a Negate, because this deck cannot beat Ugin if it resolves. Because an Ugin like -3 just beats this deck. I do have the option of playing some of my Deathmist Raptors as morphs if I think that Ugin is likely to come down, just because then it dodges the minus. But then he's not under a ton of pressure, and yeah, maybe it is going to be correct to play my second and third Deathmist Raptors face down. So that if he does play Ugin in plus, I can flip the other Deathmist Raptor to get a 4-power guy, and then the other Deathmist Raptor comes in with 3 power, and then maybe I'll be able to finish off the Ugin. Alright, guy. So best draws are probably just Collected Company and, like land Disdainful Stroke or something along those lines. So in 2 turns, I'm able to counter a World Breaker. Or 3 turns, I'm able to counter a World Breaker or an Ugin. I'm going to pause and wait for our opponent to come back. Alright, so our opponent is back. For now, at least. Well, and now he's AFK again. Alright. So, very likely to see a ramp spell here. Yep. And the next turn we're likely to see another... Okay, so there's another land. It's worth noting if we get to 6 lands... Sylvan Advocate becomes huge, and Lumbering Falls can be activated as a 5/5. But again, I expect I expect that he's running World Breaker as a 3 or 4 of. So it's not unlikely that he'll have some land destruction to come in and take out the Lumbering Falls. Which would make some type of instant speed interaction in the next couple turns nice, either a Bounding Crisis or a Collected Company, so that I can actually hold Lumbering Falls activation, so we can't target it with World Breaker. So we're going to get our opponent to 7 here. Okay, veggies. Okay, so he has access to Ugin next turn. Which leaves me with a couple options. I'm going to get him to 7. I can get him to 4 with Lumbering Falls. Or I can play face down Deathmist Raptor. Yeah, I'll play a face down Deathmist Raptor just to give me some insulation against Ugin. Yeah, so he's on exactly Ugin mana right now. This might just be a world breaker. Oh, Chandra. Brutal. Well, he has a minus for it. So one of the only ways that I win is being able to flip my other Deathmist Raptors into play. So I'm not going to play this face up. I basically have to play to the board at this point. But we're in a lot of trouble. We'll see how he decides to approach this board with Ugin. Fetch will take him to 6. So this was pretty good. So yeah, if I play it like this, and I attack him with Deathmist Raptor, flip it and bring both other Deathmist Raptors into play face down. I have a reasonable chance. Oh, whoops. And then any one of the Deathmist Raptors is lethal, and Lumbering Falls is lethal. So we might be able to steal this one. Yes, face down. Okay. Ulamog will probably just beat us here. If he can play it. Oh, he only has access to 9 mana. Kozilek's Return beats us. Or no, it doesn't. You need Kozilek's Return plus something. Okay. So we're able to play around the Ugin with the morphs, which was pretty key there. So on the draw, I'm going to cut a Jamoka's Command and bring in a Disdainful Stroke. This deck has access to a lot of sweepers. I think this is probably a fairly bad matchup for our deck. We need a critical mass of pressure to be able to hang with what he's doing. Both of Nissa, Chandra brought a lot to the table for this deck. It doesn't seem like it's one that's running Ruin in their wake. Although he's running Evolving Wilds, so I would think that he is. But this deck got a lot of nice tools in the most recent set. You know, access to Thought-Knot Seer, for example. is a card this deck doesn't interact favorably with because it just blocks all of my threats, except for Death Mist Raptor, I guess. So we're really hoping to curve 1, 2, 3. Rare for this deck. It's because Warden's the only one drop. This hand is far from great, but I'll run it. So I'm likely to go Forest, Plains, Prairie Stream, and then keep the Swept back because it can get me another blue source if I happen to have one of them destroyed. Yep. So Thought-Knot Seer, exactly what I'm talking about. In terms of a card that my deck just does not interact well with. The nice thing is that Reflector Mage can bounce it. And then I get to draw a card, but he replays it, and I lose a card anyways. So I really need to be able to get on board with enough speed that I can empty my hand for the turn after I Reflector Mage it, so that when it comes back into play, it can only hit lands. I would imagine Oath of Nissa probably is almost exclusively hits for his deck. I doubt there's even a sequence of cards that would cause Oath of Nissa to miss. I don't know how many Kozilek's returns he's running. I would assume he's running them. It's one of the main reasons to run red in this deck. So there's Ruin in their wake. He doesn't actually get value off this. Okay, another land. So our opponent will have to decide between Collected Company and Reflector Mage most likely when Thought-Knot comes down. And I would imagine that he takes Collected Company. This is when it leaves play, right? Yeah. And this is Pilgrimage. That's actually an interesting draw. I could counter Thought-Knot Seer and then next turn Collected Company. This is a really interesting spot. Do I want to save the stroke for Ugin or Chandra? Is the question. We know his hand right now is Forest, Thought-Knot Seer, and some number of other cards. He took Thought-Knot Seer over lands. He's certainly going to hit land drops for the next couple turns, I would think. I think my hand beats Thought-Knot Seer without countering it. but I'm gonna hold up Disdainful Stroke because this will insulate me against Chandra anyways. And I drew another. So this is very likely a Chandra. Okay. So I'm gonna get Canopy Vista here. Collected Company. This is interesting. I can flip Jace. Yeah, I'm gonna go Death Miss Raptor Jace here. I'm gonna flip Jace. And pick the land. I'm not gonna flashback Collected Company main phase. He has access to too many instant speed. Or sorry, too many sweepers. So I'm gonna hold up the Crisis and Disdainful Stroke. Okay, so he's access to 7 mana. This could be a World Breaker. Alright, so we answer Ugin for now. Alright, next game. So we ended up being able to win. Our opponent stumbled that time, and we drew our interaction.